Hello and welcome to the INDX webinar series. I'm Karen Ullman, Director of Fashion and Toys at AIS. For those of you who are new to AIS, we are Associated Independent Stores and we're the leading independent buying group for home and fashion in the UK and Ireland. We have a buying throughput of around £500 million from more than 300 retail store members, including department stores, garden centres and specialist stores, sports stores, for example. We work exclusively with independents, which can range from single stores to regional chains with a combined retail turnover of over £2 billion. We have around 130 staff in specialist buying and support functions. We're centrally located in the Midlands at Cranmore Park, where our head office doubles as an impressive conference and exhibition centre, which would normally be buzzing at this time of year with trade shows. So in the absence of the live shows, we wanted to ensure that we continue to engage with our store members and provide relevant and useful information in the run-up to retail reopening in April and May, which we're all very excited about. So we're delighted to be introducing a series of live industry-focused webinars aimed at independent retail businesses. We have an exciting group of expert speakers covering topics from social media skills to customer engagement. And I'd like to thank all of our speakers for giving up their time to host these sessions. There'll be no corporate jargon, just interesting content that we hope you'll find useful. If you do want to ask questions during the session, please use the chat icon, which is at the top right-hand side of your screen. It's a little speech bubble with a question mark in it, and we'll ask the questions at the end. I'm delighted to introduce you to Glenn Regan from Alchemist Business Consulting. Glenn is a passionate lifelong retailer with an honours degree in retail management. He began his career with a variety of operational roles before spending over a decade in buying and merchandising, working across a broad range of product categories and trading across numerous global markets. Appointed a merchandiser at the Disney store at just 26 years old, he turned a declining category around, leading it to be their fastest profit growth category for all 5 years of his tenure. For this, he was recognised by Retail Week as a finalist in their Rising Stars competition. In 2015, Glenn moved to John Lewis and moved from merchandising product to running physical space, where he was accountable for millions of square feet of space, the functional strategy for over £1 billion worth of sales, as well as overseeing multiple multi-million pound projects. That was a bit of a tongue twister. During his tenure, he developed a cutting-edge analytical tool which identified significant opportunities to optimise the commercial returns across the John Lewis and Partners physical estate. Earlier this year, Glenn founded Alchemist Business Consulting to transform the profitability of small and mid-sized retailers with his innovative analytical software and market-beating strategies. So Glenn is going to talk to us about secrets from the boardroom, 5 simple things you can do to win at retail. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand you over to Glenn.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate that introduction. Hopefully you can all see my screen as well. And really what I want to do is to spend the next sort of 20 to 30 minutes with you to really give you the benefit of a whole variety of strategies and thinking that I think could help you through this time. Please do take notes, and as Karen said, there is space to ask questions as well, and I'll be only too happy to take those towards the end. Firstly, though, it might help to kind of know who you're dealing with. As Karen said, I'm Glenn, and I spent 20 years in retail, but actually my initial history is in small business. My parents both ran their own businesses, and I grew up in the small business mentality. It's something I'm passionate about. My dad was a hat and garden jeweler, and my mum worked in the kind of childcare industry. So I know small business, I love small business. And I've worked through bigger businesses in my career as well. But look, I kind of want to call out the elephant in the room to some extent. The fact is, it's been a really hard year in so many ways for so many of you. Either we need people to be buying local, or we're going to lose some of these fantastic local retailers. For me, what's really important is that we are thinking about the things that work. I might have a degree, but theory isn't my thing. What bothers me is what works and what doesn't work. What's going to really help your business? What's going to make an actual difference? That's what really does interest me. Hopefully over the kind of coming time, we'll talk about just that. I've got 3 guiding principles. These are kind of my guiding lights, if you like. Firstly, it's about simplicity. I believe that any fool could make things difficult and complex. Actually, to master something is to be able to bring it to life in simple ways. Many of the things that I do when I work with businesses are about making it as simple as possible, not big, flowery, complicated, detailed things. What are the 2 or 3 or 4 actions that will see a move from where you are now to where you want to be? So simplicity is key. And hopefully over the coming few slides, you'll see that what I've done is boil these things down to simple, actionable things for you. Next thing, I believe in automation. It has never been cheaper, more affordable, or easier to automate things. If something can be done by a computer, it is probably cheaper and more effective to do it that way. I'm not talking about bringing in multi-million-pound systems. I'm talking about simple, everyday things that allow you and free you up as the team running the business to do what you do best, to innovate and to run your business. Thirdly, and probably most importantly, retail is about people. If you haven't worked it out, retail isn't a product business, but a people business. Focus your time, your energies on your team, your customers, your suppliers, and it will pay back for you in spades. Never forget that you're in the people business, and I think you'll be just fine. Now, I'm going to start with my first key piece of information on something that's maybe a bit unusual. I want to talk to you about 19th century philosophers and sociologists. Yes, I know I said it wasn't all about theory, but we're going to have a little bit of theory now, but I think you'll understand this and really like it. If you haven't heard of him, Vilfredo Pareto was born in 1948, and he was an engineer, a sociologist, a philosopher, and he came up with what is known as Pareto's law. He initially observed this in Italy, where he lived, and he noticed that there was a distribution of income, much as there is now. And he worked out that about 80% of the nation's wealth was held by just 20% of the nation's population. And he was curious about this, and he looked for other examples of this in the human world. Now, what's all that got to do with running a small business? Well, actually, this is what it's about. There is a relationship between all sorts of parts of your business. For example, about 20% of your products are responsible for about 80% of your sales. Probably about 20% of your customers are responsible for about 80% of your income. And it goes on and on. There's all sorts of examples across retail, business and life that there's an unequal distribution. Now, it might be 90-10, it might be 80-30, but you kind of get the point, right? If you look at things, they will not distribute evenly in many, many circumstances. Now, what that means to us is a whole variety of things. In its simplest term, you could just take your product range, that about 20% of your products are responsible for about 80% of your sales. So just putting in the effort to keep those products in stock, in front of your customers and well priced makes a huge difference to your financial success. Equally, it could tell you the converse, that 20% of your product range isn't quite as important, and it's there you can look for opportunities to remove certain products and save yourself a bit of cash tied up on the shelf. So there's loads of ways of applying it, but the way I want to talk to you about it today is about how if you were to take 20% of your energy, you would achieve 80% of the things that are going to make a real difference to your business. That's what I want to talk to you about through the rest of this presentation, is what are those 20% of things that are going to make the real difference? At the moment, you're looking to reopen shops. There's 1,001 jobs that you've got on your list, and no doubt you even start listening to this thinking about all the things you've got to do. Well, actually, let's look at what's going to make the difference so that you can focus on those things and get it right for customers rather than overwhelming yourself. Ultimately, what I'm saying is be great at the things that make a real difference and give yourself a bit of breathing space for some of the things that are going to make less of a difference. So let's move on and talk about our 5 things. Making money in retail is a process. There is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. If you understand the steps of those processes, the cogs in the wheel, you can understand where to focus your attention. There are 5 steps to making money at retail. The first is footfall. Put simply, you need to put people either into your digital store by clicking on your website, or you need to get them to walk through the front door of your shop. If you haven't got customers walking through the door, you're going to struggle to make any money, obviously. So once they're in your shop, it's about conversion, converting them from browsers to purchasers. We'll come on to talk about a little bit behind the mechanics of that. But what I want you to really understand about conversion is it's not something you want to do a comparison to your neighbor or comparison to your friend. Conversion always compares to you. Here's why. Say you run a shop that people use as a cut through to get to somewhere else in the town. A large number of people are going to walk through you are not going to shop with you, and you can't really help that. Converse someone who is a destination shop, people might be coming into you, and the only reason they'd come into you is to shop. Therefore, while your friend down the road might be doing very well at converting 10% of their customers, you could be doing badly by converting 50%. So never compare yourself against someone else, always against yourself. Step 3 then is, once we've converted them, increasing that basket spend. There are 2 ways to do this. Sell more items to people, or get people to spend on average more per item. So you either upsell them to the more expensive item, or you get them to buy something else. Together, those 3 things formulate your sales. Get those 3 steps right, and you've got a great sales line. Now, I'm sure you've heard it, and it's an overused adage, but if sales are vanity, profit is sanity. And the next 2 steps deal with profitability. The first of those is about margin rate. Clearly, if you can buy things more cheaply without affecting the quality and desirability to the customer, you make more money per sale. So driving your margin rate is important. If you're not used to the phrase margin, I'm sure many of you are, but it's simply your sales less after your VAT, less what you spent on buying that item yourself. So that's the money you make on that transaction. There's just one more step, and that step is all about profit retention. Now, it's really, really important here not to get confused, okay? If you are talking about cutting costs, you're in the wrong mindset. It's about cutting costs as a ratio of sales. Any fool can slash cost out of a business. It's easy enough. What it's about, though, is not cutting cost at the expense of sales. And in fact, it might be about increasing your costs because that will increase your sales. So always look at the ratio between cost and sales, not cost absolutely. Just making stuff cheaper is easy, but it's a false game. Now, that's all very reasonable. They're the 5 steps to retail. So how do you go about actually winning at those things? Well, again, there's just 5 simple things. If you want to get more footfall, drive your marketing. It's about going outwards to the market and telling people about what it is you do, who you are, and why the heck they should care. So get your marketing right. If you want to drive conversion, it's about sales technique. Now that might be about your store layout. It might be about the people in your store interacting with customers. It might be about your commercial offer. But it's about getting customers to go from browsing to shopping with you. Now, here's a little secret for you. If those 2 things together are your commercial proposition, boil it down really simply. If you have a commercial proposition which is unique in the market, it's market leading, world leading, whatever your market scale is, and you tell people about it, you will win. That's actually the key to it. Have a really great proposition that other people can't do, and then tell your customers about it. If you can get that right, you'll find 99% of the time your business will work well. There are, of course, the 3 other steps to look at. Drive your basket spend through upselling. That could be as simple as putting the chocolate bars on the till, as W.H. Smiths are famous for, or it could be more sophisticated, selling the tie with the shirt or selling complementary items together. Loads of ways of doing it. It's about upselling your customers to buy either more items or more expensive items. If it's about margin rate, that's about your purchasing strategy. There's loads of ways of doing it. And obviously I'm talking here with the AIS team in the background. This is part of what they do. They gather together people's purchasing power and make it more powerful to drive people's margin rates. That's kind of part of what their business is about. It's about understanding how you get the item at a lower price without doing the customer over. Equally, if the product is worth more money, great, sell it for more money, but not at the harm of your customer. So it's about loving that customer in that process, but ultimately driving your increase in margin. And profit retention is all about cost management. Now, I know loads of people don't get into running retail because they love cost management. That's generally not the thing, but actually a structured approach to understanding your costs and to reviewing them regularly will pay dividends. So it's about understanding all those factors together that brings you the potential gains. So let's look about how you're going to do this in your business. Well, first thing you need to do is to review your own performance. Understand where you're at. Look at those 5 factors and work out, are you doing well? And there's 2 ways I want you to look at that. The first way is look against your previous performance. Now, I accept your figures might be a little squiffy at the moment because of COVID, and that's understandable. But you can make an educated judgment as to where you think you're at. You can compare a month to a month. So you've got a month's data after you reopen, compare that. Or you can make some judgment factors. You know your business. So look at what your previous performance is and work out, are your figures going up or down, and where are they going up or down? If you know that you can convert 25% of your customers, and now you're only converting 10%, you know you've got a problem, and you know you've got the potential to do better. That's a really powerful statistic for you to kind of enable yourself to do better. The second place is against the market. What can you understand about the broader market? Is the figures you're getting common? Are others doing far better? Have a look at that and use that to your advantage. Now, hopefully at this point you've got a list of problems that say, my business is suffering in the following ways. So, where is the greatest effort versus reward? Yes, it may be a lovely idea to completely refurbish your shop, to build it out new, build an extension at the back and put on all sorts of fancy bells and whistles. That's pretty expensive, and actually design alone won't drive huge increases in sales. Conversely, you might find there's little tweaks you can make which cost you nothing but a little bit of time, and even maybe not a lot of time. And those can drive you reward. So have a look at your risk reward. Now formulate a strategy. What are you going to do about it? Come up with some plans. What's going to make a difference to this category in your business, or this store within your group, or this product within this area of the business? What is the difference that's going to make the difference to your business? Then execute the strategy. Go away and do it. Go away and make that happen. And repeat. Back to step 1. What's happened next? What can we learn? You want to be iterating through this, and it doesn't matter whether you're a store owner, you work within a store. If everyone has the mindset of what is the matter with the business, where can it do better, how can I make that happen, and then deliver it, your business will keep dialing itself up. It's that constant mindset from everyone, that entrepreneurialism, that will help dial your business forward. The independent and the small and mid-sized retail sector is generally pretty good at this. It's the passion that you guys have that is so exciting, so energizing, and gives so much possibility. Don't forget, it's all in the numbers. That's where the answer will come. I just want to talk about course correction, because there's a general feeling that to change your strategy, to dial your business, you need to make these massive sweeping changes back or forth. I don't generally believe in that. My view is, if something is fundamentally broken, then change it. If it can't get any worse, what's the difference if you're going to make a big change? If you have a business that's fundamentally working, make small iterative change. The example I hear, and I've got the photo of the aeroplane, if you were to be heading towards New York when you left London, but you were headed a few degrees off course, you could be in LA instead. Now, that may be desirable or undesirable, depending on your view of foreign travel. But either way, small corrections that are followed through will make a real difference to your business. So don't get stuck on this idea that you've got to make massive changes. I certainly rarely advocate that particular approach. Small iterative changes that make the real difference is my general philosophy on this. Ultimately, what you want to have is some confidence in your strategy. What I've done behind this, I've actually built the Retail Transformation Matrix, my own piece of software, which actually brings all these figures in together and then suggests course corrections. What's fascinating is I actually ran some of the data from Woolworths, if you remember them, back in the day. And Woolworths had an interesting problem. Woolworths had a lot of stock and not a lot of cash. Now, I'm sure that the retailers might go, well, that's fairly simple. You run a sale, you sell off your stock, you generate the cash, and you buy good stock. Actually, Woolworths' problem was they were generating so little profit that when they did make a sale, they never ended up being able to retain the cash. So conversely, if Woolworths had gone and increased their prices rather than decrease them, they actually would have held on to more profit and could have even saved the business. What's interesting is that sometimes the logic doesn't work with what you might think. And it's about understanding kind of some of the layers beneath that, which is why I've built the Retail Transformation Matrix. I am so confident in that matrix that if you do want a hand with some of this analysis, I will find you at least £15,000 in sales growth in a 1-hour meeting, and I guarantee it. Otherwise, I'll give you your money back, frankly. It's about understanding what's important to your business and finding the right thing to say. If you're confident, follow the steps I've laid out. And if you're not confident, give me a call and I'm sure I will be able to help you. Hopefully that's been an interesting and informative session. I am going to hand back to Karen and see if you've got any questions for me.
Thank you, Glenn. That was fascinating. It's quite interesting because we've had a series of sessions so far, and there are some common themes that are coming through. So that's really good to have those sort of like reconfirmed. Just generally, what do you see as the future of the high street?
So actually, Karen, I'm really optimistic. There's a number of studies that I've looked at. So Deloitte recently released one late last year, looking at the future of the high street, and actually their view is that the high street will perform better than shopping centres and retail parks. But actually, for me, I think there's a real humanity to retail. If you look at what's happened over the last year, social distancing takes away a lot of the humanity of being human. We're naturally social animals. We like to be with others, to talk, to give those we care about a hug. That's just part of being human. And I'm also aware that retail is the #1 outdoor leisure activity in the UK. You combine those two things and you go, people will want to be out on our high streets. We're going to get a bit of nervousness to begin with. We know there's a lot of people who are worried about their jobs, and we know that might kind of suppress their spending for a bit. But if you look long term, people will want to be out shopping. The data shows that people will come back. Deloitte are backing it, and everything to me suggests that it's going to work well. The other side is if you look at online retail, everyone's like, oh, it's all about online now. I don't buy it. I think online will remain an important part of UK retail. But if you were to actually look at yourself and any of the people listening on the call, think of yourself, how many purchases did you make online because you had no alternative versus how many purchases did you make because, frankly, you thought online was the better channel? We're always going to shop online. It's convenient and it should be part of the retail mix. But particularly for our independent retailers, these guys are the heart of the town. And I can talk about local retailers to me, and I am desperate for them to open their doors because I want to spend money with them because I want a thriving local high street. That's important to me. I think it's important to a lot of people. So I sit on the very optimistic scale. I think retail will come back. And that's kind of my view of the future of the high street, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When we emerge from lockdown, will customers expect us to be on sale, and should we be? And, what should our strategy be sort of, for April opening?
Absolutely. I think there's a few things. There's going to be retailers out there who've got a bunch of stock they need shot of because it's just not where their customer's going to be. That's understandable. I don't think it's about red banners all over the place. For me, it's about stepping back and going, how do you look after your customer in the way that no one else can or will? How do you be, so vital to that customer's purchasing journey? They wouldn't dream of shopping elsewhere. To me, it's about kind of creating something that's that bit more exciting, that bit more welcoming. And yes, that might be a price-led message if price is a really killer decision for your customers. Actually, if I think of my local bakery down the road, their bread's far more expensive than elsewhere, but it's really good. And I will pay the extra because that's great. And, the people that run it know me and welcome me. And that's more important to me than, yes, I can get a cheap loaf of bread in Tesco, but I can't get that beautiful artisan bread that I treat myself to from a bakery down the road. And that to me is the critical question is, what do your customers want from you, and deliver it.
Okay, that's great. And thinking about the process, the review process that you talked about, how formal would you make some of that process? Is there value in maybe, taking key people off site and having a moderator? How far would one go?
I think a lot of it's cultural. I'm very much more, and I will generally write on windows and make notes everywhere and stick post-its everywhere, because in my mind I just need to see it all up and think it through. So to me, it's a very much casual writing on the walls sort of thing that works for me. There are companies for whom a properly formally assessed thing will work better, because there'll be certain people who will feel more comfortable contributing in a kind of facilitated environment. I think it's far more important to understand what it is that works for your team, for your business, than it is to kind of go, well, actually, I'd rather, do it in a different way.
Okay, great. And as a new retailer, where should my marketing strategy start, and what could it look like?
Yeah, so marketing for a new business is clearly going to be very different to marketing for that kind of mature business. For me, if you're in a new business and you're looking at marketing, I would take a fail and fail fast approach. So go out, try something new. Can you reach your customers via Facebook ads? Does that work for them? Does it work from social media? That you can do some great stuff on Instagram, for example. Actually, does your customer going to respond to leaflets through the door? Or is it better that you're stood, and obviously COVID measures aside, better that you're stood in the street giving out samples? I would always say to people, don't spend fortunes, spend small amounts of money trying things, look at where you're getting the ROI, and then focus on really doubling down on that methodology. When you've exhausted that one, then move into your next strategy and try your next thing. But find what works for your customers and give it a go. Be my thoughts.
Okay, that's great. And actually, interestingly enough, one of our other speakers who was focusing on social media was pretty much saying the same thing. And she was actually saying it's quite inexpensive to invest in social media, and it might be pretty much what you're saying, might be worthwhile trying it out to see what traction you can get.
Yeah, it's perfectly possible to spend £5 a day on something like Facebook advertising and get a broad enough reach to get enough results to know if it's for you. and say a 5-day campaign at £5 a day, it's 25 quid. It's hopefully not too painful for a business to lose.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on the future of online retailing?
So that's another fascinating question. Where will online go? So the online trajectory has been fairly consistent at about 2% growth until last year, where obviously we saw the 2020 growth up from 20% to just shy of 28%. I think online will see a bit of a dip actually, and I'm probably reasonably unique in that. I don't think many people expect that. I think it will drop back down to about 25% for 2021 would be my guess. It will stay stable for a bit and then regain its growth thereafterwards. At some point, it's going to plateau. If you look at physical retail, it kind of does these iterative curves. We call the bottom of the curve a crash, and then we see the growth coming out of it. So you see these kind of almost curves on the graph. At some point, we'll start seeing those curves online. So at some point, we'll see an online plateau, and then it will come down to total spend gain rather than one or the other. So I think there's that side to it. Amazon clearly are now, they've just opened, I think today actually, their second physical store in Wembley. So that's their second supermarket. It's fascinating to see how they will grow. But equally, I think a lot of people know that shopping with Amazon, a lot of people have ethical issues with it. They'd rather their money went elsewhere. So it's convenience versus ethics, unfortunately.
Mm. Okay. As more brands get taken on by the likes of Marks and Spencer's, who've obviously just announced their new partnerships, or Next, who've just bought Reiss on their platforms, what are the implications for smaller independents in terms of brand supply? Should our members be exiting some of the brands that Next and Marks and Spencer's are featuring?
Well, it's an interesting one actually. So if you were to talk to certain retailers, they would say that having competitive people selling the same product in the same town actually boosts overall sales. There's a couple of the electronics brands who've taken that view. So you'll see certain of those brands are in multiple locations in the same town centre, shopping centre. So there's that to consider. For me, the real question really is not should I stock them or should I not? It comes down to what am I doing for my customer that no one else is? Now, it might be that you offer better service, you understand the product better. That's really common in small independent fashion stores, that you can advise people on those products far better than an M&S or a Next ever could train their staff to do. So maybe that's your point of difference, and it doesn't matter if you sell the same product. Equally, it may be that your point of difference as a retailer is, well, actually, I offer my customer unique brands and products they can't see elsewhere on the high street, or I bring them in from X foreign country that they won't see. The only thing to keep in your mind, of course, is if you are selling the same product as another high street competitor and you are selling it for significantly more, some customers will buy from your competitor, probably in your own shop while you've helped them. That's unfortunate. They're showrooming on you. So there is always that dynamic to think about as well. Make sure you're offering a real point of difference.
And I guess it's a good idea to keep up with what the latest prices are, in your competition, so that you can make sure that you are competitive.
Absolutely. And there are apps and pieces of software out there that can do that for you. So you can actually go online, tag the products you sell, and it will email you if someone else is dropping their price or changing it. Lets you keep abreast of the market without investing hours and hours and hours on it. You can also build a tool with spreadsheets doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Automated.
Yeah. How do we compete with the buy now, pay later options offered by e-tailers and retailers?
Two options. Join them. That's one option. So get involved, look at the payment rates, and does that work for you and your business? Second thing is, does your customer care? Because I think there's a lot of stuff about people say, oh, someone else is doing this, or Amazon's faster than me. Well, Amazon's faster than you, but they can't offer the service, the experience, the locality, the customization within a country mile of you. You almost have to, you've got to pick what is it that makes you unique. You can't be the cheapest, the fastest, the most local, the most convenient, the most everything. Don't even try. Pick about what is it that you offer commercially, what is it that makes a real difference to your customers, and deliver on those one or two things. Don't try and do what Amazon do better. You won't win.
Okay, that's great. And final question. The model is great. What do you think is a reasonable timescale for a small retailer to be successful in achieving those steps that you're recommending?
So I would be looking to review those steps at least once a year and to be making a difference within them. Now, the speed at which you go through them depends on the strategy. So some of the strategies that I work with my customers would be a 6 to 12 months where 6 to 12 weeks where we work on something, and then it would mature over a period of months. Other things are we're going to do that this week, implement it, and we'll start seeing benefit from it in 2 weeks' time. So it really depends on how complex the strategy is as to whether you want to do it now or you want to do it at some point in the future, or it takes time. Generally, bigger changes and things that have bigger impact take more time, and things that are small tweaks, that are small wins, take less time.
Okay, that's great. Oh, we've had one final question coming in. Sorry about that. Do you value footfall data either town-wide or in a store doorway?
Yes, both. Love them both. There's two reasons why I love both those pieces of data. The first one is if I know who's coming in my store, I can monitor my direct conversion, number of people in versus number of transactions at my till. That is really powerful, useful data. So that's the first one. The second thing I love is having the comparison to the town centre, because if I know that in my town centre there are 100,000 people last week and only 800 walked into my shop, I've got a nice big chunky group of people walking past my door that I need to grab by the scruff of the neck and get them in my shop. If the converse is true, where almost everyone's coming in, actually I'd be pushing into the town centre, your bid or whomever kind of looks after the area for you, and asking about what they're doing to get more people in the town centre. So it's almost, am I focusing on myself because I'm attracting a tiny percentage of people into my shop, or am I focusing on outside and going, hang on a minute, why are you not driving more people in towards me?
Oh, right, this really is the last question.
Keep going.
Okay, do you have a view on the future of retail rents and business rates?
I had a fascinating conversation with Helen Dickinson at the BRC about this about 18 months ago. She has been, and the BRC are working hard to lobby government about this. Now, we've had a fairly artificial victory over COVID, but it is artificial. I think the government are aware that business rates are a problem. And I think the best example of that, if you're ever talking to anyone about this, please advocate for it. I'm sure you do, but please do. The best example is people like Victoria's Secret, who come to the UK, they take these massive units because in the US, they just don't have the same, situation where you can get rents that are lower than your business rates and crazy stuff like this. And they end up faltering and having to pull out the UK. And it damages our retail mix because we don't get some of those interesting global brands in. So it's got to be looked at. My guess is that the government are becoming more aware. My guess is they're going to have a slightly more receptive view at the moment, post-COVID, because they sure as heck don't want a load of unemployment growth at the moment. I think in the short term, we might be right. In the midterm, I think it's going to come down to the retail recovery and how well certain people are able to lobby with government. I know you had Andrew Goodacre as well. I think spoke earlier.
Yeah, he spoke earlier. Yeah,
and I'm sure he is doing just the same as Helen in lobbying the right people to try and get the business rates down. Rents. I am still to this day stunned that rents are being so sticky and coming down. There are so many empty units. I don't understand how landlords are not doing more to reduce rents and also to support new retailers into the market, because asking someone to sign a 25-year lease and sign their mortgage and whatever is crazy. So yeah, fingers crossed the landlords will start getting the picture, because it needs to change.
Okay, That's great. Thank you very much, Glenn.
My
That was
pleasure.
fascinating. Thanks for sharing your insights, and thanks to all our attendees who joined us. And I'm going to close the session.